welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for tonight's webinar. I'm Julia with Quad Education. We're an admissions consulting company dedicated to helping college applicants get into the school of their dreams. We've got a really awesome webinar planned for you guys, all about your college profile and building your candidacy. But before we go ahead and get started, I just want to go ahead and introduce our panelists as well as share what we're going to be talking about. Amethyst, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here with you. My name is Amethyst, and I'm a college admissions counselor with Quad. So I graduated from Columbia University with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I also had a concentration in education. From there, I got my master's at the University of Pennsylvania, where I got my master's of science in education. So since I've graduated, I've worked with Columbia's Alumni Representative Committee, where I do entrance interviews. I currently work in Denver, Colorado, and I'm really excited about learning about my students holistically and helping them find their passions, which I'm hoping to do with you guys tonight.
Amazing. Thanks, Amethyst. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things from us. There's going to be a designated Q&A section at the end of the webinar where you can ask questions to Amethyst if anything comes up. So if you have a question, we'd ask that you type it into the chat box below. You can do that at any time. We're just going to address them at the designated Q&A portion. You're welcome to type in the chat box as the webinar goes on. Just please try and keep it on topic. We don't want any personal information coming out or anything that kind of will derail the conversation, really just relevant to our topic. And then also, if you want to review this webinar after it's finished, we will be sending it out to all attendees after this session. So tomorrow morning, they'll be receiving it just in case you want to go back and review, or if there's something, it'll be there for you to review. Alrighty, let's go ahead. Amethyst, take it away.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about what early candidacy development is. We're going to talk about starting places. We'll talk about the application, your actual college application, what goes into that. We'll review some timeline things, so what grade you're in, what you should be focusing on right now. I'll give you some tips, and then we'll have about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So as we go, just make sure you're keeping your questions in mind. All right. So getting into college, right, this will definitely require some planning. Let's go ahead in the chat, any dream schools that you're looking at, dream colleges, if you're thinking, I would absolutely love to go here one day. So as you guys are thinking about those colleges, it's just really important that you are giving yourself the time to get the experiences, the grades, everything that you'll need to get into Carnegie Mellon, to get into Rice, right? Especially these more selective colleges. Barnard, Northwestern, these are awesome. Yeah, so all of these colleges are going to be looking for students with great experiences and great grades. So let's talk a little bit more about how we can do that. All right, so step one is really thinking about your goals as early as possible. This is great that we have some target schools already in mind, and this will help you as you start preparing for college. So think of your end goals as the end of a roadmap, right? And right now you are making your path and trying to get to that end point. So keeping a goal in mind is super important for this process. All right, so first let's think about kind of the end of the map, right? As you're thinking about schools that you want to go to and how you can become a competitive candidate, it's really important to think about who you want to be or what you want to do in the future, right? It's that question that adults ask you when you're a kid. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do in the future? Thinking about careers and things, it can be very early, like you might be in 8th grade or 9th grade, and know that this can change, but thinking about it early, again, gives you a goal, gives you that end spot on the map to guide to. So think about careers that you are interested in. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be a veterinarian? Do you want to be an artist? That's going to decide what kind of classes you take and how you target your application. If we're thinking about graduate school beforehand, maybe medical school, maybe law school, we're thinking about what are our goals after undergraduate, and again, what type of experiences, what type of classes might we need to take to get us there. All right. So what type of schools are you interested in, right? We have some great responses already here. Duke, UPenn, Northwestern. All of these schools have different things that they're looking for, right? So Rice and Barnard are two different schools with two different types of students they're looking for. So Ivies are going to be different from really specialized programs. They're going to be different from private schools and public schools. So think about the types of schools that you're drawn to, whether that's location, whether that's the type of curriculum, and that will help you, again, get to that end goal. Okay. So again, we're thinking about end careers and we're thinking about types of schools. All right, so the actual application piece. What are the main things that are going into your college application? First is going to be academics, right? That is everything under the umbrella of your schoolwork, right? Your grades, your GPA, but also how hard your classes are. So we're thinking honors classes or AP classes. We're looking at your standardized test score, ACT, SAT, those things all fall under the umbrella of academics. But it's not just academics, right? Even though we're getting into colleges and it's about school, it goes beyond that. We're looking also at our extracurriculars. So what kind of volunteering do you do outside of school? What clubs or sports are you a part of? And do you have any leadership positions? This also includes just a normal job, right, outside of school. Another big part of our application is going to be our letters of rec. So these are from our teachers, our coaches, our employers even. These letters go right to colleges, and it's going to be important that they speak to who you are as a student. And the last big piece of the college app is your personal statement. So that is the story you write about yourself. That will go right into the application, and it'll be how you tell the college about yourself. All right, so let's dive into these components a little bit more as we're thinking about how you can develop your college profile now. So first, academics, right? Things that you can pay attention to right now, your grades, your GPA, right? It doesn't matter what grade you are, whether you're in 11th grade or whether you're in 7th grade. It is important to think about your grades and making sure those report cards are looking good now. Second is your rigor of classes. So can you challenge yourself, maybe next year, right? It's May now, maybe this upcoming school year. Can you take an AP class? Can you take an honors class? Colleges will see that and they will see that you are actively challenging yourself. And the last one is think about those standardized tests. Can you take those tests early so you are giving yourself time to retest? A lot of students I know take the SAT or ACT as early as 10th grade just to give themselves that space to take a lot of tries. We also have those P-SATs, the pre-ACTs. Those pre-tests will give you an idea of where you are testing-wise. We saw the last couple of years that a lot of schools were test optional, but schools are now coming out of that. Right, so more and more schools are now requiring test scores. So it is important that now you are really focusing on those standardized tests. All right, extracurriculars. So these are all the things that we can do in addition to our schoolwork. So things that I want you guys to be thinking about right now. First is quality over quantity. This means that it will be a lot better for you to stick to one club or two clubs and really dive deep. Like become the president of that club, spend a lot of hours volunteering, really dive into one sport, and become captain of the team. It will be a lot better to show that depth, that commitment over time and those leadership positions rather than being in like 20 random clubs that don't connect with each other. Number two will be to follow your passion. So really consider what you like, right? So don't just volunteer with kids randomly. If you don't like kids, you guys don't have to do that. There's so many opportunities out there that your support team can help you find that you should be doing something you enjoy. And that really does come across in your applications, in your written work, how much you actually like that thing. Okay. When we're thinking about leadership, it can come in a lot of different forms, right? So I gave some examples: a coach, a president, a secretary, any position within a club, an organization. It could be at a job, right? If you're just working at an ice cream shop after school, these things all count as super meaningful experiences. I see an awesome question from Henderson in the chat. How many extracurriculars do you need? This is a great question with this last bullet point. How much can you handle while keeping up your grades? So you don't want to take on so many extracurriculars that your grades, that your schoolwork starts falling, right? We went over academics first because I'd say that's probably the most important thing. So push yourself to take what you can. But again, remember quality over quantity. I'd rather have you in 3 clubs that you're super passionate about, you've been a part of 3 years of high school, and you have leadership positions in. That's a lot better than 20 clubs that you just kind of go to a meeting every 2 weeks. Right? So there's not a perfect number. I would say most people could handle maybe 3 to 5 is a good range for not letting your grades fall and going for quality over quantity. Third part of the application, your personal statements. Well, this is the third and fourth parts, your personal statements and your letters of rec. Now, personal statement, again, that's that big essay. Usually it's going to go with the Common App. It's an essay about you, your obstacles, the things that you are hoping to gain from your college experience. We usually don't actually write this until the end of your junior year or right before your senior year because we want it to be really relevant. We don't want to have a paper that we wrote 4 years ago in our college applications. We want something really relevant and current. But we're bringing it up now because it's important to start thinking about it. So think about your story, maybe the things that you have accomplished, your successes, any challenges. Just start thinking about that now and what could make a good story, a 650-word story about yourself. Same thing with the letters of rec. You're really not going to start asking for these until a little bit later in the process. But super important to think about letters of rec early because you want to have those letters of recommendations from people that know you well and can speak about you on a deep level. So awesome examples of letters of rec would be like a teacher who's taught you for 2 years instead of 1, right? They could speak a lot more to your experiences, to your success as a student. Same thing with maybe a coach, right? So say you played soccer 9th grade through 12th grade, having that soccer coach speak to you will be very important. So the idea for letters of rec is similar, quality over quantity, right? So I'd rather you have 2 or 3 teachers who you know really well, you have good relationships with, they can speak to you a lot about a lot of different things than like 20 teachers who say like, oh yeah, they were fine. Awesome. Another question from Henderson. If I want to major in engineering, can I get letters of rec from my English and Spanish teacher? Yeah, absolutely, right? With our letters of rec, it will be important to think about breadth. So we're thinking about teachers, mentors, people who can speak about how successful and awesome you are in many different contexts, right? So maybe if we're engineering, we lean a little bit more towards our science teachers, but having one English or Spanish teacher will not hurt your application, and it'll show that you can be successful in a lot of different ways, which is what we want our college applications to do. All right. Okay, so let's get into specifics on the timeline. Middle school, if you're in middle school, let's get a woo woo in the chat or a smiley face or something. Let me know if any middle schoolers are here. And I'll tell you guys what you should be focusing on at this point in your career. So for our middle schoolers, number 1, you need to learn how you study best, right? So the goal here is to set yourself up for success for that academic portion throughout your high school career. So starting in middle school, you should feel really good about building good study habits. Second, read as much as you can, right? So reading, being able to study well are huge for college and for keeping those grades up through high school. This is also an awesome time to explore your interest. You might have no clue what you really love to do. Are you an art person or a math person? Are you someone who's going to love playing a sport more or being in theater more? This is the time to do those extracurriculars, to go get out there and figure out what you like. You don't have to have everything figured out by high school, but it's good to have a general direction, right? So in general, I know I love kind of English and history. I'm a humanities person, and I'm going to tailor my high school experiences around that. Or I know in general, I'm a science math person, so I'm going to tailor my high school experiences around that. So taking time in middle school to explore what you actually like is important. Another thing would be think about careers. I know it's early in the process, but it's really hard to apply to colleges or to figure out how to tailor your application if you have absolutely zero idea what you might want to do after college. But even in 11th grade, you don't have to be sure. But again, it's nice to have kind of a general idea. So this is a great time to talk to your friends, to talk to your family about what do they do and what did they study and where did they go to college, so you can start getting some ideas about what's out there. Right? Get good grades. So one thing to know about the college application process is you're not going to be uploading your middle school grades. So when those college applications come out, they're going to ask for your grades from 9th grade onwards. But if you have poor grades, if you're struggling in middle school, that will very likely translate to high school. Right? So starting off high school in a really good note, coming from a strong middle school is very important. And the last thing I'll encourage you guys to do is just learn to ask for help. Right? So if you don't understand something, if you need help, if you're lost, that's just a general life skill. Ask your teachers, ask your family. People are out there and ready to help you. So we can ask for it. All right. So next are 9th graders. Any 9th graders? Throw a smiley face in the chat. All right, for our 9th graders, there's some specific things that we could start doing. So first is setting up our goals. I want you guys to plan out what classes do I need to graduate. So if you don't have your high school graduation requirements on you or you don't know, this is a great time to go figure out. Right? What specifically do you need to graduate? And what classes will you need to take to get yourself onto an honors or AP track, maybe a little bit later in high school? So I always like to advise my 9th graders to have a document that says in 9th grade, I'm going to take these classes, 10th grade, these classes, 11th grade, these ones, and 12th grade, these ones. Right? And the idea is that we know what's coming ahead of us and we can set our goals. If I know my junior year, I want to take AP literature, maybe that means in my 10th grade year, I'll take honors. And in my 9th grade year, I'm really going to focus on getting a good grade in literature. Another thing we can focus on in 9th grade are our extracurriculars. So we just joined high school. We've got some new things out there for us to explore. Let's try out those high school clubs, those sports, those activities to find our passions, right? 9th grade is still a really nice time for exploration within those high school activities. Okay. And the last thing we're really going to focus on are building relationships. So I know when I was a student, if I was struggling in a class, I would not talk to the teacher at all. I would run out of the class as soon as the bell rung, and I would come as soon as the bell was ringing to start class. I would really encourage you guys to spend a little time chatting with your teachers, asking for help, staying after class. These are really helpful things that can create relationships, and those teachers might eventually be people who write your letters of recommendation on the actual college application. All right, 10th graders, let's hear it. I wonder if we're going to have a big group of a specific grade come in. So 10th graders in the chat, let us know you're here. For our 10th graders, all right, we're thinking about our extracurriculars, but we're starting to narrow. Right? So again, quality over quantity. So 9th grade, middle school, we're trying out a bunch of different things. We're in theater, we're in soccer, we're doing a million different things. 10th grade, I want you to start narrowing it down, right? So I want you to think, I love theater, and to become a member of the Theater Honor Society, to really dive into doing all the plays. I might not be able to be a part of soccer, right? That's okay to let go of some activities so you can really dive into others, right? So really thinking about your interest at this point. For our 10th graders, this is also the time to start thinking about testing, right? So PSAT, pre-ACTs, these are the tests before the official test, are usually offered in the 10th grade. So at this point, we should be studying, we should be preparing ourselves for them. If we can get a tutor, that's great. If we're just buying a study book and going through a couple questions when we're doing our homework at night, that's also great. We should get a sense of maybe where we struggle on those tests. Like, we take the PSAT, we realize like, ooh, we're really good at math, but we're struggling with the English and reading section. So now we know we can spend a bit more time on that section. So standardized test. And the last big thing for our 10th graders to focus on is college research. Right? So at this point, we should start thinking about not only where do I want to go, what are my dream schools, but also where am I be a good fit, right? So you might think, at this point, right, I love the big city. I took a trip to New York and I loved it. I want to live in a big city for college, right? So those are things you should start thinking about in 10th grade and start making a list, right? If there's schools that you really love, that interest you, maybe you start visiting schools. You're keeping in mind that end goal so we know what we're working for. All right, 11th graders. Do we have any 11th graders here? All right. For our 11th graders, this is our time to officially take the SAT and the ACT. So last year we were taking those pre-tests. This year we are taking those tests. Again, not every school is requiring these scores, but we've seen in the last few years it's been test optional. This year, this upcoming year, it's becoming less test optional, right? So more schools are actually requiring these test scores. So what I don't want to happen to you guys is that you don't take the test because you're like, oh, I'm just applying to the school. They don't need it. But then you maybe change your mind, or maybe the school changes its policy and needs the test. So recommend that you're taking it junior year multiple times. So if you can take it perhaps in the fall of your junior year, you get your score, you know what you need to work on, and take it again in the spring. So you have a chance to improve. Right. Another thing that we should be doing in 11th grade is like, let's start going to the schools. Let's start touring the colleges that we have on our maybe list and make some choices, right? So the end of 11th grade, we really want to have like a solid list. We kind of know what schools we're applying to because we're going to be doing that our senior year. So that's really a great thing to be focusing on. Another thing that we can focus on more at the end of our junior year is that personal statement, right? So the story that we write about ourselves. I would highly recommend doing a draft of that personal statement early, maybe asking your English teacher or a family member to read it, give some edits. And I always advise my students to like take a break, right? So once you have a draft, take a break from it, right? Step away, give yourself some space to give yourself a chance to come back to it with fresh eyes. So that's a really great thing to do. 11th grade, get a draft of your personal statement going. And another thing will be your recommendation letters. So at this point, you should have teachers that you've built relationships with. Starting from 9th grade, you've been building these relationships. You should have your favorite science teacher or a really awesome Spanish teacher. And you should be thinking, these are the people I want to write for me in my application. All right. Any 12th graders? 12th graders, you guys are almost done. I don't think any 12th graders will be here. All my 12th graders they're checked out. But our 12th grade years where we actually are sitting down and applying to college. So that fall and winter of your senior year will be busy. That's the year where you're actually filling everything out. So again, we should have that personal statement draft. We're coming in senior year. We're cleaning it up. We're making it presentation perfect. And we're submitting it. We should have our letters of rec teachers figured out, and we should be asking them at the beginning of that 12th grade year. Awesome. Yay, we do have a 12th grader. Caroline, awesome. Another thing that our 12th graders often forget is to keep our grades up. It is super easy to get that senioritis itch, to let everything fall through. I think one of the rumors that we hear is that it's only your 11th grade grades that matter for college. This is not true. Actually, colleges will ask you for your mid-year transcript, and they will ask you for your end-of-year transcript at 12th grade year. And I've seen it happen before where students actually got their acceptances rescinded, so taken away, because their grades dropped so badly senior year. So senior year, your grades still matter even after all of those applications are in. All right. So here's some tips I'm going to leave you guys with before we start moving into our Q&A portion. Is, first of all, this process can feel like pretty intense, right? Like we're trying to get into college. We're doing all these concrete things, but like you should be having fun through this process. You should be taking extracurriculars that interest you, that you like. You should be maybe working a job, a summer jobs that you enjoy. Volunteering that you connect with. If you love animals, maybe you should be looking at the animal shelter. It shouldn't be every moment is super stressful. You should be leaning into the things that already interest you. Second big tip is we're starting early. So starting from middle school, we are thinking about these things, right? We're thinking about our grades. We're thinking about our extracurriculars. We're thinking about our teachers, and we're thinking about our personal stories that we can tell in the college app. You will not be able to start too early in this process. Big thing that I see is like maybe you enter 9th grade and you're totally set on wanting to be a veterinarian and taking science classes. And then 10th grade, you take a super awesome English class and you're like, oh my gosh, now I want to be an English major. This is okay. This is actually great. You don't have to have everything figured out for college and for your life by 9th grade, right? So it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to have some wiggle room, as long as your colleges are saying, oh, this is a passionate student. This is a good student. This is a committed student. It matters. It doesn't matter so much about the specifics of your exact extracurriculars or your exact classes. Awesome. So number one mistake I see with students is they're just doing a bunch of things that they think colleges will like, right? Like, I'll be a part of this volunteer organization just because this is what colleges want to see. I've read applications for Columbia, and I'll say it's super obvious when we get students like this who just have a laundry list of the most impressive things, but there's no direction, there's no sense of passion, there's no through line, there's no interest. It's obvious. So make sure that you're doing the things you generally like. That will come off to colleges. All right. I'm going to say it again. I cannot say it enough. Start early. All right. Middle school, 9th grade, you could be thinking about this process now. And checking on your goals. Again, it's okay to change. It's okay to reevaluate. But if your ultimate goal is to get to Barnard, then what can you do to move yourself closer to that goal? Okay. And lastly is use the resources available to you. Use your family, use your teachers. I'm a counselor here with Quad. I think we have an awesome program, very supportive program. So if you're interested, please reach out. And yeah, it's an exciting process, and I'm very interested to take your questions. So yeah, if questions could come through in the chat, we'll keep an eye on that, and yeah, let's do it.
Also, if you want to use the QR code, you can scan with your phone and do that as well. If it's easier for you to use your phone to type a question. I know some people might be viewing from their desktop or another form, so feel free to do that as well. But I think we've got a couple questions coming in. First one maybe from Henderson. If I want to major in computer engineering and I haven't taken Comp Sci 1 or 2 in 10th grade, am I in trouble?
Ooh, great question, Henderson. I'm seeing your second message too, that you're planning to take Comp Sci 1 and 2 in 11th grade. I think that's okay. 11th grade is what will most likely shine most on your applications because you won't be done with your 12th grade first semester classes if you're applying early action or early decision to a university. So still challenging yourself in 12th grade and taking those courses, but if we take AP Comp Sci in 12th, that is great. Again, we want to show them that we're challenging ourselves and we're taking rigorous classes. We won't have that final score to be able to show to colleges, but I think that's okay. I do not think that you're in trouble. Again, it's normal to change our minds, right? So maybe we figured out that we really like computer engineering later. As long as you are taking a range of classes, you're challenging yourself, I don't think you're in trouble.
Amazing. Thanks. Okay, question from Dorothy. Do additional recommendation letters help, or do admissions officers mostly skip over those?
Ooh, great question, Dorothy. I do find that additional recommendation letters do help. For the most part, your letters of recommendation are going to be more important based on the content of what they say than the amount. So let's say we have like 5 or 6 recommendation letters when the school is only asking for 2. But all of the letters are kind of saying the same thing. They're just like, she was fine, she was in my class. They're not really going to stand out, right? But if we're getting more letters from people with specific stories that fill in gaps of our application, then those will be what matters. But I would discourage you from just adding a bunch of letters because you think it's going to be helpful. Unless, right? So let's say that you volunteer for the blood drive and that didn't really come off. You didn't write about it in your essay. You just kind of mentioned it. It didn't really come off anywhere else in your application. Having the blood drive organizer write you a letter of rec will show a little bit more about how important that activity was to you. So quality over quantity. We'll say that again and again. If they're adding something new and different, yes. If they're just more teachers saying kind of the same thing, I would not.
Okay, question from Vicky. Given several great applications, how do you determine who to admit?
Ooh, this is a great question. I like to think of the application cycle as like a pyramid. So at the base of your pyramid are the academics, right? So if we're applying to, say, an Ivy League school with a 3.5 GPA, it won't really matter as much like the letters of rec or the extracurriculars. They're probably just not going to be considering those applications, right? So first thing schools will look at is what's their academic standard, and which applications will they consider based on the academics. I'd say the middle part of the pyramid are the extracurriculars. So if we have a good academic student that has a range of extracurriculars or extracurriculars that they have leadership positions in, that will bump them up. So again, if we see someone who has amazing grades, but they like have never volunteered or they've never been a part of a club, that might cause a raised eyebrow because we want people who are involved and committed. At the top of that pyramid will be your personal statement or those essays that you write, that main essay and any other supplementary essays that the school asks for. So again, if we have a great applicant, they have good grades, they have a lot of extracurriculars, but they didn't really tell us anything interesting about them, or we don't know what their goals are, or we didn't get a sense of who they are, that might hurt their application. So we really want that pyramid of step 1, great academics, step 2, great extracurriculars, and step 3, really meaningful personal statements. And if any one of those things are out of whack, that would probably be that deal breaker.
Okay, thank you so much. Question from Cameron. If you are an American but you live abroad, do you apply as international or as an American?
Ooh, great question. I think that will depend on your location of residence and your passport. And it will also depend on the specific school. So I won't be able to answer that fully because I don't know what specific schools you're looking at. For the most part, if it's like you've lived somewhere else all your life, then that will be international. But if you were born and raised in the US and maybe you've lived somewhere else for a couple of years, I believe that you can still apply as an American, but I would definitely check with the specific school's requirements.
Okay, question from H. If I want to major in business, is it okay to take econ instead of a history elective for senior year?
Ooh, yeah. Yes, I would, again, just be really clear about your school's requirements. So if your school requires 3 credits of history to graduate, you don't have those, you don't want to take something else that would hurt those credits. But absolutely, I love seeing that connection between classes that someone has taken in high school and that major or their plan looking forward. So yeah, that's a great decision.
Irina is asking what websites are best for creating a college resume. I'm not sure if you can add some clarification on that, Irina, but if you want to take a crack at that, Amethyst, I think you mean application?
Yeah, for like a basic resume, like a job resume, some schools will actually ask students for a resume. And I use Canva, like Google Docs has great templates. It doesn't really matter as long as it's kind of a clean, organized template for you to list your activities. The specifics don't matter as much, but those are the 2 I use. So Canva and Google templates for resumes.
Thank you so much. Question from Kenneth. What are the cons of applying to college for an early decision?
Ooh, awesome question. So probably the biggest con for applying early decision is you have to go there. So early decision is different than early action. There's also like early action. There's a lot of different terms that schools use, but early decision is where you say, I'm applying to you early. So let's say Columbia says, I will apply to you early, Columbia, and if you let me in now, I will 100% go to your school. So cons are if you are not 100%, if you're just trying to do that for like maybe a bump in your chance of getting in, then that can look really bad if you say you're going to go and you don't actually end up going. And colleges do speak to one another and they do send those lists around of like students who broke early decision agreements. So that could actually hurt your chances of getting into schools on regular. So definition of early decision is saying I will 100% go to this school if I get in, and you can only apply to one school early decision. So that should be your absolute dream school that you would love to go to.
Okay, thanks so much. Question from Dorothy. Can I mention events from one of my essays in another essay, or should they be absolutely different?
Awesome. Yes, there can be a little bit of overlap. So it's really good for your whole application to have a general direction, right? So say that you're a student who has really struggled with their sleep, and now you want to study science and technology so you can figure out ways to improve sleep for people in the future. So if you have some different essays that you kind of talk about your struggles with sleep or your dreams for the future in different essays, that is okay, but they should not be repetitive. So when we're thinking of events like a specific moment in time, I would not say that moment across essays, right? If we're saying one specific moment in one essay, let's just focus on that. But if we're focusing on a theme throughout our essays, that is okay. So yes to themes, no to specific stories.
Okay, question from Amali. Do you recommend submitting a video introduction?
Unless the school is asking specifically for a video introduction, I would not. And a lot of schools use the common application, so you won't actually be allowed to upload additional content. So for the most part, I would go to the university's requirements and let's go above and beyond. So any supplemental, optional supplemental questions you should be doing, right? So if the school says, hey, optional to submit a video introduction, you should do that. Absolutely. But if it is not, the university didn't ask for it at all, and you're thinking about just emailing them with a video introduction, I would not do that. Universities are super, super busy, especially during application season. And they'll actually only take probably about 5 minutes to look over your entire application, to read all of your stuff, to read all your essays, all your letters of rec per student. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So they're not going to want additional content that they didn't ask for.
Okay. Question from Cameron. Can you add pictures to your personal essay?
No, don't do it. Do not do it. Yeah, I would not add any pictures to your personal essay. Some schools will have like a supplemental question. I know a school I worked with last year said like, submit a picture. And that is okay. But again, let's not add anything that the application did not ask for.
And I guess on that note, pictures would not be allowed in the application, right? Unless they're asked for?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Most app, like through the Common App, you guys will not be able to upload things that they won't ask for. So the Common App, all it will accept in that box are just the words. Yeah.
Okay, question from Dorothy. I'm applying REA to Yale. Does that mean that I can't apply early action to schools like SMU?
Good question. So REA is restrictive early action. So this is similar to early decision, but it's after early decision. So in the application process, you'll do early decision first. So that's the one school that we want to go to early. And then restrictive early action just means that this is the school I would go to like second, pretty much. That's what that means. So restrictive for REA, you cannot apply early action to other places. Correct. So if we're doing REA to Yale, we're just doing REA to Yale, but we can do just EA, just early action to other schools, but not REA.
Okay, amazing. I think that's all the questions that we've had. So if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and type them below and we'll get to answer them right away since it's the only question left. So yeah, any more questions, just keep them coming in the chat box.
Awesome. Yeah, these were awesome questions. You guys are a great audience.
Okay, I think that might be it. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank you all again for joining. It was a really insightful conversation and was awesome to see. Oh, never mind. We got a question. Yay! Okay. Do schools look into your social media to get to know you better?
Ooh, amazing question. Yes, in today's modern day and age, there is always the possibility that schools are looking at social media. Again, it will depend on the school. It will depend on the number of applications they get. Some schools just will not have the time, right, to go through and look through every applicant. But if you're maybe on the edge, they're not super sure, absolutely, schools have all the right to just Google you and look you up. So yes, we're taking any inappropriate pictures off of our Instagrams, or we're making things private if we want to keep anything on there that we don't want colleges to see. And I would also encourage you guys to like make a LinkedIn page or a more professional social media page.
Okay. Question from Dorothy. So just to clarify, if I apply REA, I can apply EA, but not REA to other schools. And while you're answering that question, can you re-explain REA for Cameron, please?
Yes, absolutely. So let's first just break down REA. So restrictive early decision means that it's not binding in the same way that early decision is. So it's a not binding, non-committal way in which you're saying, hey, you're my first choice. So if I get into your school, I will go to your school, but you're still allowed to apply to other things, early action. So early decision, you can only apply early decision. With REA, it's basically just indicating which is your top choice, but you are allowed to apply EA to other schools. So I'll just say that one more time to make sure it's super clear because I know it's complicated. Restrictive early action means you're applying to the school and you're saying, hey, you're my number one choice. Usually this is for schools where like students didn't get their ED. So they didn't get early decision. So now the next level is regular early action. They say, I would love to go to your school. If you let me in, I will go to your school, but you're not bound by a contract. And you can apply to EA other schools.
Amazing. Thanks so much for clarifying that again.
Yeah.
Any more questions, guys? Keep them coming. We've got some really great questions and really insightful answers. So thank you, Amethyst, for all the work that you're doing. Much appreciated.
Of course.
Okay, question from H. Is REA deadline after you hear back from ED1?
Yes. So you will. Yep. So these are schools so a lot of people, what happens is they'll apply ED to super competitive schools that have 4%, 5% rates. These are mostly our Ivy Leagues, right? So schools that are very selective, but not as selective of Ivy Leagues will do REA. So this is Notre Dame. This is Georgetown. These are schools that kind of want those students who just got denied ED to come to them next, right? So they're saying, hey, we know you just maybe got an ED rejection, but you can come here, right? And we'll be your school. So that's really the purpose of REA, is to get any students who got those ED rejections. So you will know your ED decision first, and then you'll be able to figure out REA.
Amazing. Any more questions, guys? Let's see that chat box light up.
Ooh.
Okay, I think that's it for the night. Once again, thank you so much, Amethyst, for all of your insightful answers. I know I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did too. Just to clarify one more time, if you missed it at the beginning, we'll be sending out this webinar to all attendees tomorrow morning. Okay, another question from Anna before we go. So what's the difference between ED2 and REA?
Awesome. I'm going to go to my handy dandy documents. I just want to make sure these are all super clear. All right. So let's just go through this one more time all together. Okay. So ED1, let's talk about ED1 first. ED1 are those 100% committed, right? You will go to this school if you get, if they let you in. So that's ED1. ED2 will usually, this is still ED, but they have a slightly higher admittance rate. So that means that with ED1, you're bumping your chances of getting into that school more than you would in ED2. So the difference really between these are just the timing of the rounds. So ED1 is going to be your super, super most competitive schools, and then ED2 will be your still really competitive, but maybe one level down. The main difference between ED2 and REA is ED2 is that binding agreement, right? If I do not get into this, if I get into the school, I will 100% go. Whereas REA is you are allowed to still look at other schools. Right? And you're just saying, hey, you're my first choice.
Okay. Is that clear for everyone? I know we've had a lot of questions surrounding this. So
it's very complicated. It's really just timing. It's just timing. So think of EDs as the you must go, and then REA as round 2.
Dorothy, can I still apply ED while Yale REA?
Yes.
Lots of acronyms.
Yeah, I know. I'm all these acronyms.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Any last minute questions? Let's give you guys some time.
Nice. And Dorothy, yeah, those deadlines will change depending on the school. So just what you just don't want to do is apply ED and REA to the same school, but you can do those to different schools, because remember, REA is not committed as ED. So you can apply ED here and REA here, and that's okay.
Okay, another question from Kenneth. Are you at a disadvantage if you don't apply early?
Ooh, great question. You're not necessarily at a disadvantage, but early applications do have a slight bump just because percentage-wise you're competing with less students, right? So less students are applying ED somewhere than are regular. So the chance of getting into that school will be higher in ED just because there's less students to compete with.
Okay, question from Cameron. Can you apply ED1 and ED2?
No.
Okay, question from H. So I guess you cannot apply both REA or ED2 because they're at the same time.
Correct.
Okay, short and sweet with those ones. Okay, any last questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
And again, if you're interested in a specific school, please clarify their processes, because it's very unlikely that one school will have ED1, ED2, REA, and EA, and regular. These are different processes for like different types of schools. So that's why it can be kind of hard to think about, oh, can I apply here, because different schools just have different systems of doing things.
Okay, amazing. Thanks for clarifying that. I think that was kind of a question that I had floating around in my head, so really grateful that you answered that. I'm going to give it maybe a minute or two left before we call it for the night, because it looks like we've answered a lot of questions.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the chat, just in case anyone wants to copy this. Just for triple understanding. There we go. So that's there if you want to take a quick screenshot of that.
Amazing. All right, I'll give you guys a second to scan through that.
Yeah. And then you'll see how complicated of the process is.
Okay, I think we're good. I think we've answered all the questions. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for joining. Amethyst, thanks again for answering all the questions. I feel like I can't thank you enough at this point. We'll be sending this webinar out to all applicants, just so you guys can review and everything like that. Want to thank you again, and make sure to check out Quad Education for all your application needs and college admissions needs. Thanks so much for joining, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.